We're already about a quarter of the way done with the NFL season, and so far this year, there have been a lot of unexpected things that have happened. A lot of teams that I expected to be a lot better haven't really showed up, and some teams that I expected to be not good at all have made their way into the top half of the NFL. But in this video, we'll be talking about the top 10 teams in the NFL through 4 weeks. Let's go ahead and get things started at number 10. I have the Indianapolis Colts. If this was based on just the first 3 weeks, it would be hard for me to not put this team in the top 5 or 6. And even with the loss against the Rams, they were really competitive in that game. And if it weren't for them making some really bad errors, like a lot of penalties early in the game and even late in the game when it mattered most, especially Daniel Jones having his worst game of the year, which I'm not sure if that's going to be the version of him we get or the version from the first 3 weeks. So there's still a lot I want to see from the Colts, but overall, I think 10 is a bit on the safe side. A lot of this is being held back due to quarterback play, and I think the overall upside of the team offensively isn't really high, but the defenses came out to play for the most part. And overall, I think they definitely deserve a spot in this list, potentially even higher, but there's just a few other teams that I had really close with the Colts, but I ended up picking a couple teams over them, and one of those teams is the Packers, who I have at number 9. If this was based off just the first 2 weeks, I might have the Green Bay Packers at number 1, but the last 2 weeks have been rough. Honestly, the tie with the Cowboys does more bad than good, in my opinion, for the Packers. Really showed us that when it comes down to it at the end of the game, their defense, which I thought would end up being one of the best defenses in the league, and through 3 weeks was statistically the best defense in the league, they weren't able to get a single stop against Dak Prescott's Cowboys. Going into week 4, the real concern I had for the Packers was the offense, but against the Cowboys, they really showed out. Once again, though, it's against the Cowboys, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. Probably the worst defense I've seen, honestly, this entire decade. So you can't really blow this performance out of proportion on either sides of the ball for the Packers. There's still a lot of improvement that could happen on both sides of the ball. But once they get their receivers back, I think the Packers will move up this list. Just a lot of really good teams in this league that have slightly higher. And at number 8 might be the first surprise on this list to some of you. I have the Baltimore Ravens. I think some people might not even have them in the top 10. But overall, I still have a lot of faith in this team. If it weren't for 2 Derrick Henry fumbles, they would probably be sitting at 3-1 right now. But of course, we've seen this story so many times. We can't live in a hypothetical world when it comes to the Ravens, because one way or another in the playoffs, the team always ends up choking and finding a way to lose. That's been happening in the regular season, which was something I didn't really expect. I still think Lamar Jackson's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I still have a lot of faith in Derrick Henry. Despite the early season struggles, he still had a couple really good games. I think the receiving core needs to do a better job of getting separation. It's really been a lot of Lamar trying to run around the pocket and find an open receiver, but the guys really just haven't showed up. Zay Flowers has had an average start to the year. Mark Andrews has been okay. Rashad Bateman's been solid, but overall, they need one of those guys to really step up if they want the offense to take it to the next level. And as for the defense, on paper, I thought this would be one of the best units in the league, but overall, they just haven't been able to put it together. Obviously, they've played a lot of good offenses, but so far, the 4 teams that they've played, just about every one of them have had their best offensive performance of the season against the Ravens. And assuming that Nate Wiggins and Lamar Jackson come back from injury in the near future, still have faith in this team, but there's still a long way to go if you want to see them move up this list. But just because I think their floor is really high, I think they definitely deserve a spot at number 8. Moving on to number 7, probably the most proven of the teams so far that I've mentioned, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just need to figure out how to play a complete football game against average to below average teams. They've been able to come back, and when it matters most in the fourth quarter, Baker Mayfield's been able to put the team on his back. But against good teams like the Eagles, that really just doesn't end up working out. Obviously, the comeback was real. They had a real chance at winning at the end because of some special plays from Mayfield, Emeka Egbuka, and Bucky Irving. But once the team gets healthy, I still have a lot of faith in them. I think Mike Evans should definitely add another element to this offense, as he's been doing for the last few years. But they need to start games off better. Their defense, I thought, has done a solid job so far this year. Offense needs to be more consistent. But right now, I think the Bucs are definitely one of the best teams in the NFL, right on that edge of being contenders. At number 6, I have the LA Chargers. I think this team also, after 3 weeks, could have potentially been in the top 3. Right now, after that tough loss to the Giants, I'm not sure if I can say that. I feel like a broken record saying this, but just like for a lot of these teams, the offense has to be more consistent. especially starting with the offensive line against the Giants and even the Broncos. It was really not great for the Chargers at all. completely different than what we saw through the first 2 weeks. I think a lot of that has to do with Joe Alt being injured, and he's going to be out for at least a couple more weeks. But when he comes back, I think the line's going to be great, and I think the Chargers will continue to be one of the best teams in the league. But whether or not the team is good enough to contend is something that we'll have to wait to find out. But before we get into the top 5 of this video, I think this is where the cutoff is for teams that are real contenders versus teams that are right on that edge of being contenders. So why don't we get into a couple honorable mentions? I have the Commanders right outside of the top 10 at number 11. I think overall, once Jayden Daniels comes back, they'll find themselves somewhere in this top 10. I don't think they'll ever reach the top 5 this season, but they'll definitely be towards the bottom of this list as a top 10 team. And then I have the Steelers and Seahawks at 12 and 13. I don't think they'll really ever reach the top 10 in the NFL, but both teams have shown some sort of offensive consistency at times. But let's get into the top 5. The 5 teams that I consider contenders in the NFL to potentially make a deep playoff run and win the Super Bowl. At number 5, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, they're still contenders. The Ravens game showed me just about everything I needed to see. We saw what they could do with Xavier Worthy in his first week back. He had a big game against the Ravens. Once Rashee Rice comes back, I think this receiving core is going to be able to help Patrick Mahomes out a lot. Real problem for this team is the run game. Through 3 weeks, Patrick Mahomes was the team's leading rusher. The run game really needs to get going. I thought it was slightly better against the Ravens, but the Ravens have also not been a very good run defense so far this season. So we'll see if the Chiefs are able to turn that around. Arguably, outside of the quarterback, roster-wise, the Chiefs are the worst in the top 10, but just because of the championship pedigree that they have, they definitely deserve a spot in the top 5. And defeating the Ravens, who I had number 8 on this list, definitely shows us that the Chiefs still have a lot left in them. And while the Chiefs were a team that I thought were right on the edge of being contenders, my entire top 4 on this list are teams that I could comfortably say are going to not only win their respective division, but definitely make deep playoff runs. At number 4, I have the Detroit Lions. The worst out of this tier of teams that I think are real Super Bowl contenders. But overall, the Lions are still very good. It's just that week 1 performance that I'm still docking them a few points for. But nonetheless, since then, they've been absolutely incredible. I did not expect them to beat the Baltimore Ravens, but them winning that game was really huge for them. And last week took care of business against the Browns. Just about everything since week 1 has went right for them. The running backs, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, have been outstanding. Receiving core, Amon-Ra St. Brown's been great. Jared Goff has been great. I think the defense is getting better. Aiden Hutchinson keeps getting better every single week after that injury that had him out all of last year. So overall, I think the Lions are definitely trending upwards, and they definitely deserve a spot in this top 4. At number 3, I have the Los Angeles Rams, probably the biggest riser on this list since the offseason. I did think the Rams were going to be a good team, probably a top 8 to 10 team in the league, but so far they've shown me that they're still one of the best teams in the league. I had a lot of concern when it came to Matthew Stafford and the back concerns, just because the guy's getting up there in age. At some point, he's going to have to slow down. But that is absolutely not this season. He's been outstanding. Of course, with the duo of Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, I think adding Davante Adams was probably one of the best moves of the offseason that any team made, just because Puka Nacua gets some of the attention taken off of him. And, of course, with a guy like Davante Adams, who is scoring touchdowns just about every single week. I'd love to see him get a lot more targets, though, take some of the pressure off of Nacua so that he's not so overused when it comes to playoff time. But so far, the Rams have been great. And this is the perfect segue into the team I have at number 2, because if the Rams ended up beating the Eagles, I think they would end up being number 2 on this list. But the way the Eagles showed resiliency and were able to get the pass game going for the first time all year, that really showed me that this team's still one of the best in the league. Will they be able to do that consistently? I'm not entirely sure, which is why they're not number 1. That's the one thing that's holding them back. That overall didn't affect them too much last year. Honestly, though, Jalen Hurts has looked even worse this year than last year. Taking some of the pressure off Saquon would not hurt at all, because right now he's still getting a lot of carries and is not performing nearly as good as he was last year. Still one of the best 5 to 6 running backs in the league so far, but overall this is probably the most complete roster in the NFL. But at number 1, I have the Buffalo Bills. We've seen this team number 1 on a lot of power rankings the last few years. And at this point, I'm sure they don't even care that much about the regular season and all the compliments and praise that they've been getting as the best team in the NFL, because they need to put it together in the playoffs when it matters most. But with Josh Allen being the best quarterback in the NFL, James Cook, a guy that some people thought would regress this year, has been absolutely outstanding as well. At the end of the day, you don't need a great receiving core with Josh Allen, but if there was one thing I'd point to as something that could potentially improve upon, I think it's the receiving core. But the defense has steadily improved since the Week 1 showing against the Ravens. Overall, I think them being in a close game against the Saints was kind of strange, but they were able to put them away when it came time for the second half. Overall, the Bills are still the best team in the NFL. Not the best roster, but having the best quarterback in the league and a running back that has now helped them out so much, I think this team definitely deserves to be in the number 1 spot. But really, for the entire top 3 to 4 teams, I think you could reorganize it just about any way, and I wouldn't be terribly mad at you. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did enjoy, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with my top 10 rankings. But that's going to do it for this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.